Everyone assumed that as Ukraine's drones reached deeper into Russia, Moscow would eventually be forced onto the defensive. Yet today, we're seeing two seemingly contradictory realities unfold at exactly the same time. On one hand, Ukrainian drones are flying hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 kilometers into Russian territory, striking logistics hubs, oil facilities, airfields, and now, according to Russian authorities, even a crowded beach on the Black Sea where 7 people were killed and dozens injured. Kyiv has not commented on that specific incident, while independent analysts note it remains unclear whether the drone was intentionally aimed at civilians or whether it fell after being intercepted by Russian air defenses. On the other hand, Ukrainian officials are issuing one of their bleakest warnings since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Winter is coming, and many inside Kyiv fear it could become the country's toughest test since February 2022. So how can both things be true? How can Ukraine appear increasingly capable of striking Russia's rear areas while simultaneously preparing for what could be its most difficult winter? The real question isn't whether drones work. The real question is whether strategic disruption alone can compensate for battlefield realities. Because behind today's headlines lies a much larger story, one about industrial capacity, manpower, economics, and the changing nature of modern warfare. To understand what's happening today, we need to step back. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, few expected Ukraine to survive the opening months. Instead, Kyiv held. Western weapons flowed in. Russia suffered major setbacks around Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson. By 2023, many believed momentum had shifted decisively toward Ukraine. But wars rarely move in straight lines. The failed Ukrainian counteroffensive of 2023 demonstrated just how difficult it is to break through layered defensive positions backed by artillery, drones, and minefields. Since then, both sides have adapted, not gradually, radically. This conflict has become the world's first industrial-scale drone war. Instead of relying solely on expensive cruise missiles or combat aircraft, both Russia and Ukraine now manufacture enormous numbers of relatively inexpensive drones. Some cost only a few $100s. Others carry sophisticated navigation systems capable of flying hundreds of kilometers before striking fuel depots, radar stations, factories, or command centers. The battlefield has expanded far beyond the front line. Now almost every city, refinery, warehouse, and military base has become part of the war. Over the past year, Ukraine has increasingly emphasized long-range strikes. Rather than trying to match Russia shell for shell, Kyiv has sought to attack what military planners call the enemy's operational depth. Fuel, railways, logistics, industrial production, aircraft, warehouses. The objective isn't necessarily immediate destruction, it's cumulative pressure. Every damaged refinery complicates fuel supply, every burning warehouse delays logistics, every interrupted railway creates friction throughout the military system. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has repeatedly argued that taking the war into Russia raises the cost of continued aggression while forcing Moscow to divert air defenses away from the front. Yet Russia has hardly remained passive. Despite sanctions and repeated attacks, Moscow has continued expanding military production. Its economy has become increasingly oriented toward wartime manufacturing. Factories operate around the clock. Defense spending has risen dramatically. Perhaps most importantly, Russia continues producing large quantities of glide bombs. These weapons have become one of Moscow's greatest battlefield advantages. Converted from older Soviet bombs by adding guidance kits and wings, glide bombs allow Russian aircraft to attack Ukrainian positions from relatively safe distances. Each carries enormous explosive power. Entire defensive positions can disappear within seconds, and unlike precision missiles costing millions of dollars, glide bombs are comparatively inexpensive. That combination mass and affordability has made them extremely difficult to counter. Which brings us to today's contradiction. Ukraine's deep strikes are becoming increasingly sophisticated, yet Kyiv is warning that the coming months may become even harder. Why? That's where the story becomes far more complicated. At first glance, Ukraine's strategy appears remarkably effective. Russian airports temporarily suspend operations. Oil depots burn. Industrial facilities catch fire. Military logistics become disrupted. Each successful strike generates headlines around the world. But here's where it gets interesting. Military success isn't measured by headlines. It's measured by whether those strikes fundamentally change an opponent's ability to wage war. History offers a useful comparison. During the Second World War, Allied strategic bombing devastated German cities and factories. Production often recovered surprisingly quickly. Industrial systems proved more resilient than expected. The lesson wasn't that bombing failed. It was that industrial economies can absorb tremendous punishment before reaching a breaking point. Russia today appears to be demonstrating similar resilience. Facilities are damaged. Production slows. Repairs begin. Alternative supply routes emerge. Military planners adapt. That's one reason why analysts increasingly describe Ukraine's drone campaign as one of strategic erosion rather than immediate battlefield transformation. The cumulative effects matter, but they require time. Lots of it. Another important factor is cost. Ukraine has found ways to build long-range drones far more cheaply than traditional missiles. This changes the economics of warfare. If a drone costing tens of thousands of dollars damages infrastructure worth hundreds of millions, that's an extraordinary return on investment. It also forces Russia into an uncomfortable dilemma. Every drone requires interception. Every interception consumes expensive air defense missiles. Those missiles cannot be everywhere simultaneously. Protecting Moscow may mean fewer systems available elsewhere. Protecting air bases may leave energy infrastructure exposed. In military strategy, forcing your opponent into impossible choices is often as valuable as physical destruction itself. Yet none of this automatically translates into battlefield breakthroughs, because destroying infrastructure is only one side of modern war. Holding territory remains another. Winter has always shaped wars in Eastern Europe. Napoleon learned it. Hitler learned it. Even modern armies remain vulnerable to cold, darkness, and damaged infrastructure. But Ukraine's concerns extend beyond weather. They center on endurance. Officials increasingly worry about sustaining air defenses, repairing electricity networks after repeated Russian attacks, maintaining ammunition supplies, and supporting exhausted soldiers after years of continuous fighting. Winter magnifies every existing weakness. Power stations become more important. Heating systems become critical. Repair crews work under freezing conditions. Civilian morale becomes intertwined with electricity and warmth. This isn't simply military logistics, it's national resilience. Russia understands this. Throughout previous winters, Moscow repeatedly targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The objective wasn't merely physical destruction, it was psychological pressure. Cold apartments, rolling blackouts, interrupted water supplies, factories unable to operate, hospitals relying on backup generators. The campaign sought to make daily life increasingly difficult while stretching Ukraine's repair capacity. Ukraine adapted impressively. Engineers restored damaged systems with remarkable speed. Western partners supplied transformers and equipment. But each winter brings renewed uncertainty. Infrastructure repaired once can be attacked again. Some observers argue Ukraine's expanding drone campaign may deter future Russian attacks. It's an understandable argument. If Russia fears retaliation deep inside its territory, perhaps it will reduce strikes against Ukrainian cities. Yet evidence so far suggests otherwise. Instead, both sides appear to be escalating simultaneously. Russia continues large-scale aerial attacks. Ukraine expands long-range operations. Rather than replacing one another, offensive campaigns are occurring in parallel. This resembles escalation more than deterrence. Another counterargument is that sanctions should eventually cripple Russia's military industry. Sanctions have unquestionably complicated Russian procurement. They've increased costs, restricted technology imports, forced greater dependence on domestic manufacturing and alternative trading partners. But sanctions rarely produce immediate battlefield effects. History shows that large states often adapt through substitution, stockpiles, and alternative supply networks. The result is slower production, not necessarily production collapse, which means Ukraine still faces a long contest of industrial endurance. What few people realize is that this war is gradually becoming less about individual battles and more about competing national systems. Which economy can produce more drones? Which defense industry replaces losses faster? Which society tolerates prolonged hardship longer? Which alliance sustains political support? Victory increasingly depends on these questions, not just battlefield tactics. This transformation mirrors earlier periods of industrial warfare. During the Second World War, factories became as strategically important as armies. Today, drone assembly lines may play a similar role. Mass production has returned. Only now, instead of tanks alone, countries compete in autonomous systems, electronic warfare, and precision-guided weapons. Ukraine has signed drone cooperation agreements with multiple international partners while seeking to expand domestic production dramatically. Russia, meanwhile, continues increasing drone output while integrating electronic warfare, glide bombs, and missile production into a broader wartime economy. The result is a technological arms race unfolding almost in real time. So where does this leave the broader geopolitical picture? The first implication is that Europe may need to prepare for a much longer conflict than many anticipated. Every additional winter increases financial costs. Military aid requirements grow, defense industries expand, political debates inside allied countries become more intense. Supporting Ukraine becomes less about emergency assistance and more about long-term industrial planning. Second, the war continues redefining military doctrine worldwide. Generals from Washington to Beijing are studying every lesson emerging from Ukraine. How effective are cheap drones? How vulnerable are expensive aircraft? How should air defenses evolve? How quickly can civilian industries convert into wartime production? The answers will shape military planning far beyond Eastern Europe. Third, civilian populations are increasingly becoming central to strategic calculations. The reported deaths on the Russian beach, regardless of the drone's intended target, underscore how modern aerial warfare can place civilians at risk far from the front lines. Russia has described the strike as terrorism, while Ukraine has not commented publicly on the incident, and analysts caution that the precise circumstances remain unclear. Meanwhile, Ukrainian cities continue facing repeated Russian missile and drone attacks that have also killed and injured civilians. This illustrates a broader reality. As strike ranges increase, the traditional distinction between frontline and rear area continues to erode. Modern war reaches deep into everyday life. Finally, there's the question of momentum. Many wars reach a stage where tactical successes no longer guarantee strategic victory. Ukraine's drone campaign may continue imposing meaningful costs on Russia. Russia may continue advancing incrementally while maintaining pressure through its larger industrial base. Both trends can occur simultaneously. That possibility may explain why Ukrainian officials speak so cautiously about the months ahead, not because resistance is ending, but because sustaining it grows more demanding with each passing season. History often remembers dramatic battles, but many wars are ultimately decided somewhere else. Inside factories, along supply chains, across electrical grids, within political alliances, and in the willingness of societies to endure one more winter. Ukraine's expanding drone campaign demonstrates remarkable innovation. Russia's continued military production demonstrates significant resilience. Neither development alone determines the outcome. The real question we should be asking isn't whether drones can change this war. It's whether technological innovation can outpace industrial endurance. Because if this conflict has taught the world anything, it's that modern wars are no longer won solely by the army with the strongest weapons. They may instead be won by the nation capable of adapting faster, producing longer, and surviving the longest. And as another winter approaches Eastern Europe, that question remains unanswered. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to Cobalt, because the next war won't just be fought on the battlefield, it will be decided by technology, strategy, and the systems operating behind the front lines.